in part, we host these events. Guide people towards what the right direction for help is for them. We are not a domestic violence agency. We do not have a shelter attached to us. But again, we can point folks in the right direction because, again, when people get to the end of these relationships, the unknown is scary. What's next is scary. They've been accustomed to a very toxic relationship that has broke them down to the shell of who they are now. And they've been in a fog for quite some time. So getting to the next leg of their journey can be very daunting.
Welcome to the Easy Speak Speakeasy.
You've unlocked the door to unfiltered mental health and wellness conversations.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Easy Speak Speakeasy. I'm Dahyana. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Kristi.
Yeah, the OG KG in the house.
And we are also joined by our lovely guest, Lovern Gordon from the Love Life Now Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us, Lovern.
Gosh, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you.
Awesome.
We're so happy to have you here, Lovern, especially this month for Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah.
So it would be great if you could tell us just a little bit, our audience, about what you do and a little bit about your foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, again, thank you for having me. But as you said, especially during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that's what our organization focuses on is domestic violence awareness. We want to keep the issue in the forefront as much as possible. A lot of the times when survivors or victims are in these relationships, they end up at police stations or hospitals. And at that point, it's the very first time that they're hearing about resources available to them. And that's what a lot of what we want to focus on is education around this issue and resources available to folks before they get to that point, right? So prevention as much as possible. And so we started around 2011, where after two back-to-back beauty pageants that I had won, led me to the point of, man, I know I'm not a pageant girl, but I really want to continue this work around DV awareness. And that's where Love Life Now came about. And so, the following year is when we filed for 501c3 status, and we've been here ever since. The year before during the pageant, I had started maybe about 2 to 3 initiatives that, again, sort of fueled the fire to really wanted to sort of drive this work forward as much as possible. And so that was 13 years ago. And we are now at the point where we still are doing those 3 initiatives in the community, but have added some more to them. So, in part of, our education, what we do is we host initiatives/events that we have every year that ask folks to come out and learn how they can be part of the solution around domestic violence. Again, a lot of the times people hear that word, it's a very taboo subject. It's a very shameful topic for a lot of people. And we don't want that to be the case. We want to help change the narrative around this issue as much as possible and make it an everybody conversation where everybody has a part to play in being, part of the prevention. So in part, we host these events. We, guide people towards what the right direction for help is for them. We are not a domestic violence agency. We do not have a shelter attached to us. But again, we can point folks in the right direction because, again, when people get to the end of these relationships, the unknown is scary. What's next is scary. They've been accustomed to a very toxic relationship that has broke them down to the shell of who they are now. And they've been in a fog for quite some time. So getting to the next leg of their journey can be very daunting. And I speak from experience, and that's where the passion for this work comes from. As a 2-time survivor of this issue, once as a child witness growing up in the Caribbean and watching our father brutally abused our mother up until that point, until I was 15, moving to the States, saying that would never be me. And unfortunately, children that grow up in abusive settings tend to go on to perpetrate this issue, whether it be as a survivor or as a perpetrator. And I was no exception. I became a victim. Again, even though I thought I had all the tools to know that this was nothing that I wanted to be a part of. And again, missed the red flags in the relationship that I was in and became a survivor of a 2-year relationship until I escaped. So again, the passion for the work started there, but again, it has gone so much further than what I thought it could be up until this point. So that's a lot of what we do: prevention, awareness. We host TV workshops. We're hired to come in and present around this issue to corporations. We were just at Mass Bay Community College last week presenting. So colleges, high school, juniors and seniors to talk around this issue. And really any community that will have us, we will be there. So the DV workshops, keynotes around this issue, initiatives that we host in the community, pointing people in the right direction for help. And then I think the last part, even though we're not a DV agency and we do not have a shelter, we do have 1 to 2, what I think is what really is direct service to victims and survivors directly. And so we have what's called the Get Safe Fund. And that fund helps with up to $500 for a domestic violence related expense. So you are at the end of this issue. You are thinking to yourself, I want to leave, or I have just recently fled an abusive situation, but I need help financially. I need help. I need a leg up to get to the next leg of my journey. And that can be clothes that you had to leave behind. That can be food for you and your children. That can be a flight out of the state. That can be a train ride out of the state. That can be an Uber to get to the domestic violence shelter that you're going to report to. So, while $500 is the max, a lot of the mini grants that we give out are between $200 to $300 to $400. Those are the averages that we give out. So it just depends on the person's situation. And so then the other piece is we meet the homeless where they're at, and we, gather once a quarter to, volunteers join us to put together brown bag lunches coupled with a care package filled with toiletries. So all the travel size items you can think of when you are homeless and you need, right? So chapstick, deodorant, bar soap, conditioner, lotion, all those things. And then sometimes some seasonal items like socks where, it's getting cold and folks need to keep their feet warm. And so we gather those items and we go out, and while we're serving everybody with the bags, the end game is to meet survivors where they're at. So if you can imagine me or anybody else in our circle that might be experiencing this issue behind 4 walls, can you imagine for someone that's homeless and don't think that they deserve the help, and don't even know that there is help? So again, while we're serving men and women with these bags, our end game is to meet survivors where they're at so we can offer those resources available to them. So that in a sense is who we are, a mixture of, little direct service with more focus on prevention and awareness around this issue through the events that we host and workshops, and then pointing people in the right direction for help via our toll-free number that people can call or text to find out what's available to them.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Jinx. Amazing. It's it sounds like you are kind of attacking the issue from multiple angles, because it is such a complex thing for a lot of people to wrap their minds around.
Yes.
I know for myself, the first time I really started to learn about the cycle of abuse and how it happens and those red flags that you said, a lot of us don't even know exist, right? They look like really green flags actually to
Yeah.
the untrained eye. I didn't learn any of that stuff until I went to work for a local domestic violence organization and shelter, and we had really extensive training, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of different things as it relates to relationship dynamics. And so, I know you talked a lot throughout, explaining your organization about, people who have reached the end of the line as it relates to their relationship, right? They're looking to move on. But we know statistically that it takes people often a lot of times of trying to move on before they actually do. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does that look like? How is your organization help folks who may not be at the finish line yet, but are trying to get there?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And like you said, many times on average, it takes 7 to 10 times to actually leave these relationships. And that's if you leave with your life. That's
Hmm.
if you leave uninjured, which, obviously if there's physical abuse involved, that's, not, um, they're not able to. And so, a lot, so I'll say this, when you're in an abusive relationship, as much as the person on the outside looking in knows what's best for
Hmm.
you, survivors, victims knows what's best for themselves in that moment.
Yep.
So as much as we can want to help a victim make the next leg or the next step of their journey, we
Hmm.
cannot. That
Hmm.
person has to be of mind that they have reached their breaking point and they cannot do it or take it anymore.
Hmm.
That's when we come in because they have now said, I'm picking up the phone or I'm texting Love Life Now, or I'm texting the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or I'm calling my sister, or I'm calling my parents, or I'm calling my friend.
Hmm.
Nothing can happen till that happens. And it's the most frustrating thing for supporters of this person that wants to see them out of this setting.
Yeah.
But you just simply cannot. So we can't help until that person reaches out to any entity. And so when they get to that point, maybe still they're not ready to leave. In their mind, they're saying yes, and in their heart, they still
Hmm.
love their abuser, as crazy as it sounds. They
Yeah.
still worry about what's next because the unknown is daunting, but at least they're making a step. So if they make that step, we say to them, where are you located? What is your situation at the moment? And we point them in the right direction. We say, hey, this is how you can get connected with a domestic violence advocate. We do not have advocates on staff, but we point people in that direction. And we say, when you call and we tell them what to expect, you call, you pick up the phone, it's confidential. Nobody's going to know nobody's going to be spewing your information anywhere. You're going to do an intake with someone over the phone, or you're going to go in person and do an intake with someone directly. You're going to sit down, and if you're ready to make the next step to get out physically, remove yourself, they're going to help you start safety planning. They're going to tell you XYZ conducive to your specific situation, whether that means you need to copy important documents that your abuser has a hold of and does not let you get, sometimes, at some point you're going to have to copy important documents. Maybe it means, getting a burner phone and keeping it at the job because he tracks all of your physical activity online. Maybe it's making all of the call, sort of the reach outs on the internet at a library versus doing it on your home phone so you can't track your activity there. Maybe it's, setting up yourself to get a flight out of the state, right? Getting all the things ready for that, right? So everybody's safety plan looks different, but that's what an advocate can help you do. One. Two, you're not ready, but you need to figure out what is next. They have counseling, free counseling one-on-one and or for your children, so that you can sit down and try to unwork the ravelings of these learned behaviors that you have been subjected to. Because as much as a perpetrator 90% of the time has learned this behavior from his setting, it's the very same way for victims that they have learned how it is to accept love, what it is to receive love, what romantic relationships look like, because parents are our first indicators of what our adult relationships will potentially look like. And so they've seen mom or dad be the victim. They've seen mom or dad be the perpetrator. And this is all they know. If you have nothing else to go on, this is what you go on and you perpetuate in the world. And it certainly it's so for myself. I come from a family of four other siblings. All of us watched the same abuse happen to our mother, and each of us took away something different. Okay. I am the only one that became a victim. My sister, which is the only one that I have, she is the try me. I dare you. Okay? Okay?
Yeah.
3 brothers, one who does not like confrontation, and the 2 others are abusive.
Mm,
We all watch the same thing, right?
mhm, mhm.
And witness the same thing. But again, it just depends on that person, what you take away. So, if again, all you're seeing is violence in a relationship, if all you know is dominance, power, and control, that's what you're going to perpetuate. If all you resonate with is the victim,
Yeah.
right? That's what you're going to resonate with. And then we send our kids off to college and they're on their own for the first time on a campus and they're not really realizing what it is they're supposed to do, and or they're just going off based on what they've again seen, whether it is in the home or in their community. Because again, violence can be perpetuated in the community. It can be nothing that they've seen at home, but I like that lifestyle. That drives me. And so you end up being abusive one way or the other. And so, again, it really depends on the person when they get to that breaking point to make that decision whether or not they want to move forward. It would make starting to make the exit out of the tumultuous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I
Makes
think
a lot.
what you said about um the learned behavior is so important, especially when, here on this podcast we talk so much about mental health and behavior. So, when I think about domestic violence, a lot of times I think there's this sort of like Hollywood aspect to it, right? Like people envision domestic violence and I think they see it in just one way. And it's like a man who's physically being abusive towards a woman,
Yeah.
and chaos ensues and whatnot. But there's just so many levels to domestic violence that I think people don't understand, and that the component around the emotional
Mhm.
play, I think, is such a big component, and probably where most of this starts, right? Is the play on the emotions, the moving in on somebody's mental health and making them feel certain ways that you
Mhm.
end up becoming reliant and dependent on this person. So I was wondering if you can speak a little bit to that piece and what you see with mental health outcomes for people who are in domestic violent situations.
Well, to begin with, they're completely torn. You are completely torn down from, and again, become a shell of the person that you were before you entered this relationship. And maybe you've never had the capacity to be able, or the bandwidth, or the space to be able to recover from what you witnessed as a child, right? Because no therapy was introduced, right? And which there certainly is, it certainly is available for children too. And so with that, uh, a lot of the times people believe that children, okay, so you say it to yourself, okay, my 4, 5, 6 year old, even though I'm going through this, she's not being affected because I never let her see that part, or the father only does it to me in
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors. Not true. So children are great perceptionists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You may never physically be hit in this type of relationship, but dad comes home, you are one way, right? Happy, jovial, you're playing, you guys are having a great time. Dad comes home, you are now walking on eggshells. Okay? Children pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
You say to yourself, I'm going to go to the other room so he can put me down verbally,
Mm-hmm.
break me down emotionally, and you leave the room again, jovial, happy, go lucky. You go to the room and you come back out and you're heavy, right? Emotionally. You are despondent. You are no longer communicating. You may be teary eyed, maybe not, but your eyes are red, right? And so, all these are things and behaviors and attitudes and traits that we pass down to our children. And so, you guys know I wrote a book, right? And didn't mean to bring that up, but sort of tying in the
Please
title of
do.
the book, The Legacy He Left Me. People often hear the word legacy and think something tangible, assets, money, value, right? Tangible. They're not understanding that the first set of legacies that you're passed down are traits, attitudes, and behaviors from your parenting. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
and all these norms that we learn. Children casual play at daycare. I've heard from providers where they'll say such and such was playing with such and such boy girl dynamic and he's grabbing her. Come, you need to come here,
Mhm.
right? You need to sit right here because I told you so.
Mhm.
They heard
Yep.
that. They learned that.
Mhm.
This is what they're mimicking in child's play.
Yep.
Mom, um, I'm not going to do this because my man didn't tell me to. Or, and these are things you're hearing it and you're not, well, where did that baby learn that? How could she even understand? What show was she watching when you're not understanding that it's coming right directly from the dynamics that are playing out right in the home? And so when we talk about, sort of mental health, it starts from the very ground up. Relationship building skills starts from the very ground up because you might say to yourself as a parent, oh, I'm not going to talk about this till they're, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever you deem the right appropriate age for your child to date, because that's not going to affect them till that point. But at the very core, children should be talked to about these types of relationship building skills from very young,
Yeah.
right? And so, all of that sort of trickles into teenagehood where your mental health is affected because you're now trying to navigate what these relationships should look like. And you're saying to yourself, I got it all covered, but you don't. You really
Mhm.
don't. And so, again, we can go on and on about this, but I think at the very core, it's having those conversations from very early on and not just saying it, don't do as I do, but really modeling it for it because that's what they're going to pick up. There's a saying that goes and I think it's Maya Angelou. People will often forget what you say, but they will
Mhm.
always remember how it made you feel, right? And I'm
Mhm.
paraphrasing here. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing in relationship building. They're going to remember how dad looked at you, how dad spoke to you, how how you looked like you felt, because they're going to interpret that on their own, right? When this was thrown at you or said to you, or all of these things, gaslighting, jealous behavior, all of these things are the things that they're going to navigate on their own, or they're going to go talk to their friends about what it should look like and get, because you're not talking to them, they're going to get it from somewhere else, or they're going to learn it on TikTok and they're going to interpret it there, right? So it's just so many outlets that if you're not sort of pouring into them in that way, they're going to figure it out on their own. And again, the mental health is obviously going to be affected by it in the long run.
So,
Yeah.
Laverne, is there a safe way that you would recommend for a mother, let's say, who's in a relationship like this, that they're not at the place where they're able to leave yet, but they can start to have some kind of healthy conversations with their children while
Mhm.
this is happening?
Yeah, so there is a website that I love, and it's a national resource called loveisrespect.org. Loveisrespect.org. And it really is while it's geared toward teen dating violence and awareness around healthy relationships, anybody, I think, can get resources from it. Parents on how to start the conversation from as early on, from 4 years old, right? And just sort of these gaps in time where you think like, oh my gosh, way too young, 7, 8 years old. They give you these blocks of areas to be able to start the conversation. They have a talk to text line where anybody can talk and sort of get communication about what it looks like to sit down your 9, 10-year-old around these conversations. Even if you don't feel like you have the bandwidth to have those conversations, because this is not normal for you. Sitting down and speaking to your children about relationship is not normal because it didn't happen for you. And so we're not saying everybody is supposed to have the bandwidth to be able to do it, but a resource like Love is Respect is such a great one because it really helps sort of navigate what the conversations could potentially look like, or you can give it directly to your child to say, hey, you're 9 years old, you're 10 years old. Can you take a look at this website when you have a minute so that they can peruse it on their time because they don't want to hear anything from mom. You're nagging me. This is stupid. I'm not even dating anyway. This doesn't even pertain to me. But just give it to them. Empower them just as much as you would empower a victim who is looking to try to leave. You say, here, this is a resource I really want you to take a look at whenever you get a chance. Can you just look at it? Or we can look at it together. And sort of start that way. That's my advice.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, and I apologize about the alarm. I have another meeting coming up. No worries.
No worries. It's a wonderful segue so we can get into our standard guest questions, I think. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. Your organization is doing such amazing work, and we'll make sure to link it in our bio so folks can reach out if and when they need help.
As well as the link to your book.
Yes.
Yeah, you just glazed over that like it was nothing.
I know. I love the title of that book. It's so comprehensive. you know.
Yeah. As a
Great.
child witness, going into adult survivorship, it really was important to tie in how this issue can begin for so many people. And it really does sort of start out that way. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got some questions that we ask every guest that comes to the Easy Speak. First one is, and you talked a little bit about this today, but would love for you to elaborate for us. When you reflect on a time your younger self experienced sadness, hopelessness, or mental health challenges, what advice would you give to your younger self now?
Lean into your outlet. For me, it was child's play with other folks, other kids in my community. And I talk about it in the book, that playing judge and jury was a huge piece of an outlet for me to be able to talk about the way that I felt about my father. So I was always a lawyer or a judge in that scenario because I would grow up in my mind to prosecute people like my father. And it really, again, sort of that expressive piece for me helped in those sort of moments where you felt like, oh my gosh, I had zero control over anything that was happening in my life. The other piece is find someone to speak to. I think even though I had that expressive outlet, there was never anyone that I felt okay with talking about what was happening in the home. I laughed a lot. That was another sort of, people say Kamala Harris nervously laughs. I laughed for no God-given reason. So I see myself in her a lot with that. And, I tried to be the funny person, right? So that was another outlet because that part was modeled for me by my mom. It didn't matter if she experienced an attack an hour before. She was and still is to this day so very good at self-deprecating that she would make light of what happened to her, and I could not understand how is she smiling, laughing, and this big very bad thing just happened to her and she's finding a way to make light of it. And so I that was passed on to me. I picked that up. And so yeah, always trying to be the funny person. So I guess if you have children or somebody, find a mentor for them, somebody, even if they don't have an aunt or find somebody that they can express themselves freely to, if it's not you and if it's not somebody in your network. So that's what I would have hoped for my younger self, is that I had that.
Thank you. All right, next question. How do you create boundaries to manage balance in your life?
Oh, I love this one. Because I'm a boundary girl all day, but I didn't learn boundaries till I was about 35. And it started around the work. As you guys can imagine, this work gets heavy at times. And I think around 35 is when I started realizing that I could potentially burn out. I'm 47 now, guys. So it's been a while. I've been practicing this for quite some time. And so, at that time I had to stop thinking that I could save everybody. There's just no way. I was answering calls at like 7:30, 8 o'clock from people in the community looking for resources, looking for help because they saw me. I'm very good at splashing what we do on social media. And so people got wind, when people get wind, they get wind and you want to help. You don't want that person, you don't want to go to bed and not know that that person is not in a shelter or has an outlet somewhere to go. So in any case, it started around that, but then it trickled into I'm now married. I've been married now in what I deem a healthy relationship for the past 12 years. I have to think about that for a second. 12 years. And and
Congratulations.
thank you. And it was to the point where I had to understand, I think, and that came when I was 40. So as much as I love my partner and I'm in love with my partner, I also love myself. And I had to understand that I came into this relationship as an individual with individual wants and needs, and that shouldn't die with sort of giving yourself to someone else as well. And so, doing things that bring me joy outside of our marriage is something that I hold hard and fast to. My husband doesn't love it sometimes, but oh well. It's okay. It's okay. We all live to see another day, and we're happy.
Yeah.
Lucky. It's all good.
Yeah.
But that makes me bring a better person to our marriage, and and I try to instill it in our children. Do things that bring you joy. Get to know you. Who are you at the core? When the doors close and the social media is off, what does Lovern love? What does Kristi love? What does Dahyana love? I mean, like legit, like who are you and what makes you tick? So I'm very hard and fast on boundaries. Very hard and fast.
That's wonderful. Yeah. The sooner you can learn that, the healthier you can be in life. That's how I look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
All right. I think we have time for maybe one more question before you have to hop off. And so I'm gonna skip number 3 and go to 4 because that's my
Yeah,
favorite question.
I agree.
So glimmers or small moments of joy in your life can be fleeting in a fast-paced world. What are some of your glimmers in life? Those small moments of joy.
Man, sweets.
Yes.
Sweets. It's to my detriment. I love sweets. I mean, I can sit down on a Sunday. One of those boundaries, it just kind of alludes to that. Is I work every Sunday almost every Sunday when I'm available to work at my church and the hospitality ministry. I lead that ministry and, you know, it's work. Like yesterday we had a full additional sort of piece to art to service, and I worked my tail off, right? And I get up and I cook every morning, like every Sunday. I cook breakfast and lunch before I leave the house to go serve at church, because I know when I come home I am not wifey, I am not mommy, I do not exist. Don't look for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
till about 6 o'clock, right? Then I'm back on, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
the rest of the from about 2 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, it's mindless,
Yes.
Lifetime,
Yes.
Snap, ID, all the stuff, right? I'm watching all the mindless things. And then in between that, I am eating a Snicker. I'm
Yeah.
eating a Snicker. I'm eating can't M&Ms. I just started trying to be good to do the Atkins
Oh.
lemon bars, because the
Yeah.
Lovern goes in, right? And so some sort of sweet, look, the sugar-free lifesavers. I am always dabbling in sweet. And so that's
Yeah.
glimmer. That's the
Yeah.
glimmer right there, I think.
Yeah.
That part, that part. That and sleeping. When I know I can get if I know I have a good block, like every night I'm in bed by like 9, but I'm falling asleep at like 10, 8 hours of sleep. I'm waking up feeling good, y'all. Ain't no
Yes.
frogginess here, because I
Yes.
love sleep. And so those are the two glimmers for me. Those are, and traveling. Oh my gosh. When I know I just booked a flight.
Mhm.
Woo! Not for work, because there's a lot of work travel and whatnot, but for me, when I know I booked that annual September trip outside of the country,
Yes.
ah, oh yeah,
There's nothing
glimmers.
better than clicking book on the website. It's like you can feel the freedom coming.
Oh, and it's months away because I book like December, January when it's on sale. But yeah, I just know glimmer,
Yes.
happiness right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's have a quick cheers
Cheers to Lovern.
with our witch's brew cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers,
To
cheers.
you, Lovern. Thank you for all that you bring
Right
to the
back at you.
world in your wonderful joy and light. Every time that I talk to you or I'm around you, I just can feel your positive energy, and I'm so grateful to know you.
Gosh, the very same here, ladies. I appreciate you so very much. Kristi, it's been a long time. I've known you for quite some time. Yeah. Come on, am I Dana? Is it Dana?
Diana.
Diana. No, I was messing it up, but I'm good for that. So I apologize.
No, it's okay.
And
Okay.
so
Well,
it just my heart is so full. One, that you created space to talk about this issue during DV Awareness Month, and for all the things that you guys have done to be able to create space for folks around mental health. So right back at you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Have a
Well,
great
good luck.
day.
Good luck with your upcoming fashion show, and thank you so much for being a guest here.
I appreciate you. Hope to see you guys at one of the awareness events at some point. And thank you again.
Would love
Yes,
to.
Bye.
absolutely.
Bye.
And for all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Easy Speak Speakeasy. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And stay tuned for our meditation minute.
Our meditation minute. And also, if you have anything that you'd like to share with us,
Oh, yeah.
as it relates to this episode or anything mental health related, we want to hear from you. We would love to be able to discuss real-time issues, real-time things that are happening in our listeners' lives. And so we'll link it in the bio, but also if you're listening, it's www.speakpipe.com/easyspeakonair. And you can leave us a voice note. It could be anonymous. It can be, you could tell us who you are, whatever you want. But we look forward to hearing from you, whatever issues are important to you, or if you just want to share your own glimmers or your own joys, or, you want to answer some of these questions that we ask our guests. And let us know how you're
it would
doing.
be so great to have a whole bunch of glimmers.
Yes.
Glimmer us up.
Glimmer us. Yeah. So, yes, tell a friend to tell a friend, and stay tuned for our meditation minute. Bye.
Bye.